Thank you very much, Mr. Akasaka. Ladies and gentlemen, and especially youth delegates, these last 3 days we have come together to demand that all children enjoy their right to health. We are not gathered here for an end. We are gathered here for the beginning of the remaining 5-year chapter of the MDGs, where we will need all our renewed conviction. Together, we have not found all the answers, but we have clarified many questions. We must now ask each other, how great is your hope? During our conference program, 75,000 children have died a preventable death. We must ensure that the actions of governments, civil society, and all sectors end this tragic waste of lives. I'm here today to tell you that I leave this conference filled with hope. My hope comes from a speaker called Harry O'Brien, a footballer who on Monday spoke to all the youth delegates and shared with us his heart for children. My hope comes from leaders like Phil Batterham, our Australian NGO leader who has given everything for us to have this conversation. My hope comes from all the youth delegates here present, whose example, whose questions, whose participation have been incredibly inspiring. Young people at this conference have shown more than ever that we are an equal partner in implementing the MDGs. Our call as young people, especially in this, the International Year of Youth, is that in all decision-making processes, we will be celebrated, not tolerated, mentored, not ridiculed, included, not excluded, inspired, not disappointed. I think we all leave this conference champions for that message. Youth advocates from around the world stand with us in solidarity today. Last week in Mexico, youth organisations and youth campaigners united to discuss youth in the MDGs in the lead up to the MDG review in New York in September. Our two conferences, with their heightened sense on youth participation, show us that young people have a vital role to play, and also that there is a profound international movement of young people that are determined to bring volume to the deathly silence surrounding child mortality. This means that the MDGs have not just equipped us with a time-bound plan for halving poverty, they have also ignited an incredible sense of global understanding, global consciousness and leadership in young people. If I was to provide one example, last year as youth representative I travelled around Australia. I met a 17-year-old called Daniel Kaiser in New South Wales. My friend Dan has cerebral palsy. For him this means he cannot walk and he'll be wheelchair bound for the rest of his life. Yet when you ask Dan, what do you hope for? The first thing he says is not for a world in which he can walk, but a world where poverty ceases to exist. He personifies what our generation is increasingly all about. We are all driven by a sense of purpose in this fight. My purpose comes from standing in a modest health clinic in northern Tanzania, watching a mother receive the news that her baby son was critically ill. I'll never forget the scene. It happened 6 years ago and I've thought about it a lot since. The best thing I can do is tell this story. This mother, Salome, sat on a simple bed holding her son Jeremiah, her fingers and hands trembling as the doctor said that her baby had contracted malaria. The situation for Jeremiah was all the more worse because he was already undernourished. The room was filled with her pain. And whilst she could not speak, you could tell from her terrified body language that she was just clinging on to her baby for fear that he would fall away like so many other newborns had in that community. HIV/AIDS, malaria, undernutrition, and diarrhoea being their main causes of death. Now, I stood in this room entirely conscious that children in my country faced nowhere near the number of perils that Jeremiah did. I'm the son of 2 nurses. Interestingly, in that situation, it was my dad that decided to become the midwife. Bit of an interesting one on gender equity there. Now, they have spent my whole lives talking about the health risks that they see in their everyday working lives, but they have never spoken to me about a preventable child death. Now, I cannot tell you whether Salome's baby lives. The shocking inequity is that I can leave my brief window into Salome's pain and return here to relative perfect healthcare. But I can tell you from looking at this mother sitting in such a simple medical clinic, so limited next to the hospital wards I've seen my parents run, that I knew that her motherhood should be a moment for joy, not fear. Looking at Jeremiah, who was born with the same dignity, the same rights that I was, I knew that his inherent freedoms should not be inhibited because poverty denies him basic medicines and an insecticide-treated net. This week, the Melbourne NGO community has run a public program called Making Health Global to tell stories like Salome's, but also to send a clear message that children and their mothers in impoverished communities have a special vulnerability that requires our special attention. Campaigns like Making Health Global are vital for NGOs to help the UN bring its principles and instruments to everyday people. The UN and NGOs have always worked together as a fellowship. Within this fellowship, young people play a vital role. Whilst the UN serves all people in all places, it ultimately facilitates a better world for today's young people and future generations. Similarly, children and young people are the biggest supporters behind the UN because our open mind makes us the most capable of seeing its dream for humanity. In this way, the face of the UN is that of the world's young people, and its future belongs to us. My generation is fortunate to have been the first to grow up under the revolutionary UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. After centuries of children being a last consideration, world governments finally in this convention said that children come first. In its 54 articles, this convention arms you and I with a language through which we can emblazon the rights of children indefinitely. Yet the convention remains only an aspiration for children like Jeremiah. What we have in the MDGs is a blueprint through which we can make the convention more of a reality. Will we earn the moment in time that the convention and the MDGs have provided us with? It took world governments 55 years to bring us to this point. Now we stand at a crossroads with so much to gain and so much to lose, knowing that no one will be taking our place. If we fail, we set back the human development agenda. If we succeed, we will have achieved the first half of humanity's great test and provided my generation with a signal of hope that will inspire us for the rest of our lives. And so therefore it is critical that you decide the attitude that you will take away from this conference. No one has seen 2015, but I'll tell you what I see. I see a room filled with people, the most passionate, intelligent and angry people I've ever met, that are going to be determined to act as much as they can for the achievement of the NDGs. On the road ahead, there will be people who will say that there are too many problems facing global health. Please tell them that we are talking of promises, not problems. A promise to every child and every mother. There will be people who will say that the Millennium Declaration is unrealistic. Tell them about the countless children whose realities have been transformed by its words. There will be people who will say that the United Nations is a waste of time. Tell them that its true worth can be measured by the things they cannot see. The uncountable horrors that its benchmarks have prevented. There will be people who will say that your hopes are too high. Tell them that you would rather be filled with hope than riddled with fear. Tell them that you choose to be guided by light rather than accepting of darkness. These people will have their opinions. So, let us here resolve that we will do everything possible to empower every cynic to become an actor, every government a real partner. This ensuring that when 2015 dawns on our world, it will bring a new morning for children's health. Thank you.